Hello, everyone. Welcome to Walking 90. It's a quick hits for this week. My name is Kyle Carr. I will be handling this for this week. We've had a couple of rotations. We're trying to be consistent. We got a quick kicks for you all. We got a lot of things to talk about. So for this week, I am joined by a very well-known person within the USL League One space. He hosts the Spokane Soccer Show, which talks about all things soccer in the Spokane, Washington area, primarily the Velocity and the Zephyr, but also any club and other soccer going on. It is Benji. How is it going, my guy?
It's going well, Kyle. Thanks for inviting me on. I know we've been threatening to do this for a minute, and I'm glad to finally do so. Yeah.
It's been one of those where it's like we both are just kind of like, oh shit, that's right, we gotta. I meant to send a message like 2 weeks ago, and then I was like, oh yeah, my bad.
Wait, who are your norm? What's the rotation of co-hosts on this podcast?
So normally myself, Elliot, and Ebony are the
Yeah.
main three, and then Chip was there most of the time, and then he's had work and life stuff. So
Okay. Yeah.
at some point he'll be back. I don't
I've
know.
seen some version of all four of you. I just wasn't sure how regular each of you were, but yeah, love it.
We try and be consistent. That is our goal for this season because last year and the year before were kind of not as best, but that's okay. So for this quick kicks, I figured first we will start with talking about Spokane. I mean, I feel like Spokane has been by far the best team in the league so far. They're top of the table currently in the standings and still have a sizable margin.
It's
It was
down to
one of
four
their
points. I don't know.
down to 4 points, but
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those like it's taken AVL to go on a
Yeah.
ridiculous run to get to that point. Only lost one match this whole season in the league. So figured let's talk about that because I know Spokane was a lot of people's picks to be up there winning the Shield and potentially the whole thing going into the season. There may have been someone that said, hold on, maybe that's not. Maybe let's pump the brakes as we saw what happened with Lexington last year. And that
Yeah.
person looks like an idiot. It was me. I was the one that said that.
No, it's a worthwhile cautionary tale. I mean, doesn't always that there's the reason the expression paper tiger has been used so many times is because it proves true. Sometimes you can put together the greatest team in history on paper, and then they still got to play.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a certain team that I support that may be this year's version of that. But
Oof.
I wanted to talk about what the change was because I feel like Spokane were a little bit slower to start at the beginning of the season, but have seemed to really kicked on and figured it out. So, what do you think was the biggest difference from how they were playing at the beginning of the season, where it felt like it just wasn't quite there? They just weren't hitting that level. So now it's kind of like I don't know who's beating this team.
I feel the same way. I think it's really interesting to look at the number of players that were added to the squad that had so much pedigree in the USL. Of course, most specifically League One, all the Northern Colorado players that we signed, many of whom were international, and so there were these players that were waiting to get into market. This is just going to be a common theme for anybody who's getting into the USL is international players, the time it takes to get them into market, if they're changing teams. There's visa issues, there's traveling issues. So I think that both just match fitness and fitness in general was like something that was going to take a minute. And I think we saw within the first few fixtures that, David Garcia got fit and was ready to play and, was comfortable in his surroundings. Because at one point, I think in the first few games of our season, he had only been in Spokane for a month, right? Same with Lucky Oprah, his former teammate from Northern Colorado. So I think that what I've observed and I feel pretty excited about at this point in the season is we're not firing in the attacking phase. So when the attacking returns do come, and I suspect they will, then I would agree with your statement that this team looks they're going to be very difficult to beat. And that I think has, to your question, been the thing that has changed and evolved in the first, what is it? They're on 14 games played. That the defensive solidity that showed glimpses of that last year is only been strengthened by the addition of, I'd say, especially David and as the starting center half on the right. So Carlos Marancio is playing really well and he's playing comfortably as a shot stopper. I think he's the type of goalkeeper that he's such an outstanding reflexive shot stopper, but I think he needed someone in that center half role who could marshal the defense and work with him to marshal that defense. They both are native Spanish speakers, so that helps too. But the thing that I think is interesting and is that we don't give up the goals on the counter that we were giving up last year. We've had like a couple mistakes this year defensively, whereas at this point last year, I think we'd already given up like 6 or 7 of those types of goals, in particular to this team called Forward Madison. I remember when they came here and beat us down, we got beat on the counter with Christian Chaney and others. So that isn't happening this year, and I think that's been a huge change. It's not even really the attacking returns, it's just been the defensive solidity.
Yeah, and I was kind of surprised with that because it did feel like going into the season, the reason why a lot of people are so high on Spokane was you brought back, Lucio, you had this attacking talent, and then you add Nil Vinyals, and it's like, okay, I don't know who's going to slow this team down in the attack. It just seems like a team that's going to just score, 2, 3, 4 goals just for fun. And then we're kind of seeing the opposite where it's like there's still, matches where they still get the goals that they need to, but really it feels more defensively. They're not going to allow, like you said, those counterattacking goals. I think over the season, I think you're tied with Knoxville for allowing the fewest amount of goals in 9.
And they've played 4 fewer games. So yeah.
Yeah, so then it's like, that's pretty impressive. And then you have, I think, leading in clean sheets as well. I think Murciano has 6 in the league. So I think that's been really the biggest thing. But I guess with the attack, do you think it's just a matter of because the team's so solid defensively, you haven't needed to like rely on the attack as heavily? Or do you think it's just a matter of players still trying to find that fitness and form?
It's a little of both. I think that the embarrassment of riches problem is something that's going to just work itself out over time. I think right now what Coach Lee Wiedemann is trying to do is make sure that he gets into the last, 3 to 4 weeks of this season with as much fitness in this team as possible. So it's like, how do you balance? You want to get your most informed team playing together as much as possible, but you also want to make sure that you go into the playoffs with fitness. We have 2 strikers. Both of them are age, I think it's 32 and 33 respectively. So you got to be really careful there. Nico Brett hasn't found quite the killer form that we would have hoped to see at this point, but there's still time, of course. And, we're still in the Jägermeister Cup, even though that tournament has, again, been our voodoo. It is not going well for us right now in the Jägermeister Cup. But how to get Nil Vinyals in there? I mean, I've talked about this on my podcast. I've talked about it with Coach Lee. He knows. It's like I have these 2 players that play the same role. How can I play both of them in the same game? Maybe that's something he's keeping his cards close to his chest. Lee doesn't share much with me, but I keep wondering later in the season, are we going to start to see glimpses of those 2 players playing together? I don't know. I have noticed that Nil is definitely most comfortable as a 10. I don't really like seeing him in that withdrawn role as like a holding 6, even though he can do it. He's so clever. He's so disciplined in every attack, in every phase of soccer. So it's not like he can't do it. I just think it's kind of it's an opportunity cost thing. It's like you're not using him where he's most comfortable in those half spaces on the left. Like what he just did against Texoma was ridiculous.
Yep.
So, I mean, you don't honestly see those goals, Kyle. I say this all the time on my podcast, and it's mean, but it's true. If more of these players could finish, they wouldn't be playing in League One. And that's not me being mean. It's just the reality.
It's the actual reality. Like
it is the most precious commodity in this sport.
It's one of those things that drive you insane because it's like, yes, you should be scoring a lot more of these, but at the same time, if you're doing that, you're going up to the championship. Maybe if you're an MLS like next pro team, you might look into it. So there is that thing. But I do feel like with Nil, it's maybe could be more experimentation just to see like, maybe if I want to try and get both of them on the field at the same time, maybe one of them can be more that 6 and still create in a deeper line playmaker role while the other can be more in the 10, be around the box. So there could be that possibility. I wouldn't be surprised if there's just more rotation just to take that pressure off of Lucio as well. So maybe that's it. But I feel as though that could be I wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden they were both just on fire come September. We're like, where the hell was this all season?
Well, what's interesting is tactically, is though, even though it sounds really promising to think of like say Nil in that withdrawn kind of Andrea Pirlo role, but that's just not how Lee typically sets this team up to
Hmm.
in the attacking phase of the game. That's just not how they're typically set up. It's a lot of use of fullbacks and wingers. And so if you were to think early on, I think when John Morrissey was on the podcast, we both, after looking critically at the team, predicted that Masongo Akale would get the start on the left, but eventually would get displaced by Nil Vinyals. And that hasn't happened. He did get displaced, but it was by Pierre Reedy. And Pierre Reedy has been so exceptional
Yeah.
that I worry about him going up to the championship, because so far he has been the most important attacking player on this team. And I'm saying that above Luis Hill. Nil hasn't played enough to even put him in that conversation, but I think Pierre's been probably the most important player in this team, period. So Anwar Playas has finished his chances, the ones you'd expect him to. It's when is he going to finish the ones you don't expect him to, right? So far, Nico's not even finishing the ones you'd expect him to. And that's what I'm, if our two strikers, though, start to show a little bit more sharpness and edge, then I really think this is an unbeatable team.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, Reedy has been phenomenal. It's kind of one of those where it's like it. I don't want to go as far as say like Jonathan Bolaños in that 2022 Richmond season, but it is feeling kind of like that, where it's like if he has the ball, something's going to happen. They're going to do something with it, and that's kind of where I'm feeling like with him. And I know you mentioned almost like the strikers and getting them fit and firing. Do you think that's something that maybe Spokane is going to look into maybe adding like reinforcements or adding someone, like bring someone in on loan even, or an attacker that might be out there that might still somehow be out there in the market?
I very much doubt it. I think it's a not very well kept secret that Nico Brett is probably one of our highest profile, best paid, whatever you want to call it, players, right? So
Yeah.
there's every indication that Nico's going to get his chances to start firing. And I would, I'd give him, every opportunity to do it because of the pedigree and the history. He's got that quick release. He offers something very different from Anwar Pelaez. So I'm hoping that this break and some additional fitness and so forth will be a chance to see what we can do in New York, which is next week. Now it's like 6 days away. So, but Pierre Reedy, real quick, I just want to say it is what he's doing is just unbelievable. Every time he has the ball, I think he's like a Martian. I don't understand how he maintains his balance, how he can run at the pace that he does. He'll take contact and keep moving. He doesn't look for, cheesy, he's not going to embellish. He's not going to go to ground easily. He's trying to stay upright and like storming right at fullbacks, and he'll go right through the middle of the pitch too. So I look at him and I think it's remarkable because of, he got injured, I think he made 9 appearances, including all competitions last year before a season-ending injury. And during that time, he was showing glimpses of the same thing that we're seeing now. And it's just been awesome to see him extend that run.
Yeah. And I was going to say, with Spokane, obviously they're having a great start to the season. And you've kind of talked about like make sure everyone's still fit, make sure don't overwork the players. Is there something that you're kind of like, if they can just tweak this one thing, or if we can figure out how to solve this one little issue, it'll really take off? What do you think that would be?
1 second, I'm fixing my camera, so apologies. I'm gonna give you something to edit here, and you're gonna be like, "Thanks a lot, dude." My camera has this AI tracking thing that's like super obnoxious.
You're good.
Stand by, Jesus. Okay. All right, that's turned off now. My God. Ask me your question one more time. Sorry.
Yeah, so there's one particular thing that maybe Spokane can work on, slightly tweak, where it's like maybe it's not like a glaring issue, but it's kind of one of those like, if things were not to go well, it might be because of this thing. What do you think that is? And do you think that's more of just like a player thing? Is it a tactic thing? Or is it just more of a weird coincidence kind of thing? Kind of similar to last year, where it was like the counterattacking goals.
Yep. I'd say it's the same thing that reared its head last year, but obviously did so in abundance of maintaining focus and keeping concentration through every phase, especially when you go out of possession. So not finding ourselves vulnerable to those counters that just destroyed us last year.
Mhm.
Athletic wingers and center forwards killed us last year. Um, I've seen one of those goals conceded, and it just happened against Texoma, where we had a lapse of concentration. It was actually lucky at the back post, and that's how that goal was conceded. But it's only happened a couple times this year, and I think Lee will be very aware of that. So that's when it comes to conceding. But again, as we just talked about, with the most games played, we're tied with a bunch of other teams with 14 played and have conceded the fewest goals. That's tracking in the right direction. Now on the attacking side, I think as we were just talking about, getting that finishing, getting that final, aggressive short runs in the box, you know, decisive running, decisive, movement. Like, I think another thing that I hope to see more of is keep it on the ground. I'm not a big fan of lofted crosses to the back post when we don't have a bunch of like 6'2" center. We don't have a 6'3" center forward like we did last year.
Yeah.
Anwar's pretty tall and he's an aerial threat for sure. But if he's not in the game, it's like, who's going to be making those back post runs when you loft the ball? I don't. So I'd rather see us keep it on the ground more, interchange instead of play off one another. Be patient, but be quick in movement. I sometimes think our tempo drives me a little bit crazy in the attacking phase, like recycling possession and just kind of flirting at the edges. Like, oh,
I get that. I unfortunately know that way too well.
yeah, yeah. Like make a defender do something bold. Either they're going to try to make a tackle, or you pull them out of space, but you do that through decisive moments in attack. And I think that's something that I hope I see more of.
Yeah. And then in terms of the league, do you think there is a team that either is overachieving or there's a team that's underachieving? And what you think is the reason for you believing in that?
It's a great question. I haven't paid attention the way that as much this year as I did last when it comes to other teams, admittedly. But I think the togetherness and the fight that you see in AV Alta, oof, that team could overachieve. I mean, I don't think anybody coming into the season, from all the different previews that I read and I saw, the USL show did their great breakdown with all those great guests that they had. I don't know that anyone saw this coming from AV Alta. So I don't think they were picked to finish in the bottom by a ton of people, the very bottom, but I don't think this was predicted. So the way that they play with so much spirit, that fan base is rabid. They are so into it. And that can carry teams, I would assume that Chattanooga's overachieving, but is that safe to assume? They keep lining up results. I don't
Yeah,
know.
at some point it kind of goes from they're overachieving to maybe this is just who they are. They're
Yeah.
the scrappy team that's going to make every match a pain in the ass. And I don't know. Like Chattanooga's definitely the one where I'm kind of like, I don't know how long this is going to sustain.
Yeah.
But also it kind of feels like, I mean, they've played 12 games. So at this point, it's kind of like you kind of know what teams are at the same time.
Yeah. Naples has fallen off. One Knox is looking like it's going to be a mixed bag. We'll see. But they have 4 games to play. I mean, if they get results from those 4 games, they could be right back at the top of the table. Texoma has overachieved, and I don't even know if we want to call it overachieved, because what we observed early on in the game where we beat them 4-1 is that they showed that they had some talented players,
Mm-hmm.
but they just were playing as individuals instead of a collective. And I remember commenting with a buddy of mine that I was watching the game with, that game in particular, and going, this does not look like a team we should be beating 4-1. There are some individual mistakes, but there's also a lot of individual talent. And if their manager can just get them, playing as a team, they could do some damage. And now look at them. It's crazy.
Yeah, I feel like Texoma's kind of one where it's like defensively, they're just making bad defensive decisions, and they've really cleaned that up. Like they'll still have the occasional game where it's like, why did you do that? But I feel as though they've made the right adjustments to be more reserved, to be a little bit more compact. And like you said, I think the playing as a team, I mean, that's the thing with the newer team. It's a lot harder. You're throwing 20 something new guys all into one team. It's kind of hard to have that cohesion and like that unit style of play. But I think defensively, they're also just being very, I don't know what word, I don't want to say like immature, but
I think
naive.
that's naive. Yeah, I think that's fair. I am super disappointed we didn't get the result of a win. You get all 3 points in our recent draw where Nil scored that incredible goal. We
Yeah,
had way too many chances to not end up with 3 points from that game, and I know Lee was really disappointed with that too.
yeah, and I feel like with AV Alta, Ebony and I, like early in the season, we kept saying like this team has all this attacking capability, and they showed in the Open Cup how good they can be, and they could never put it all together at the end. It felt like you have all this, you're doing everything right, but the final third, and now they've gotten it. So I feel like they're definitely a team that maybe this is who they are. I have questions about their defense still, like that's still a little shaky, but I think Knoxville's going to have the same issues they've had in the past where they're going to be really defensively solid, but the attack is going to be very, very questionable. I think a team that is underachieving is Greenville.
Yeah.
I don't know what to expect. They've gotten 2 wins recently. Granted, one of them was near bottom of the table, Westchester, and the other was a shocking Chattanooga win, I would say. I'm curious to see what happens this weekend when they come to Madison. It's like, are they going? I feel like they should be better than what they actually are. So I think Greenville's probably the team to me that stands out as underachieving more than anyone.
So our friend Rob from Talk and Flock was, boy, he was all bluster recently about his disappointment with what's happening with Ford Madison. You want to speak on that, Madison? What's going on?
I mean, I
It's a
think
safe space. Come on, Kyle.
I've said it plenty of times. I think you need to do something different. The tactic. I think everyone has figured out the tactic, and you need to make the changes there. I think the lack of attack and quality, like letting Cheney go, has backfired badly.
Spectacularly. Yeah.
And I understand there have been injuries to the squad. Like, yes, having McLaughlin out for a stretch of time hurt the team. Not having Devin Boyce for the majority of time has hurt it. Not having Mitch Osman as much or Bird. Like, I understand there's been injuries, but at the same time, you did bring in all these other guys to fill in that gap. Like, yes, you don't have McLaughlin, but you still had Juan Galindrez. And yes, you don't have Devin Boyce, but you still had Macias and Murphy, and you bring in Jackson Dietrich. It's like you have these guys. You don't have Byrne, but you brought in Wallace, Lapsley. Like, there's still guys that are there. So it's not good. It's been a struggle to watch. And it went from, okay, these draws are getting too annoying. Like, I don't think we're going to win a game.
Is it?
And
Do you feel like it's too late for this season to?
I think the team needs to make significant changes in order to save it. And whether that is a coaching change or formation / tactics / player change, I feel like they can't continue doing what they're doing and expect it to get better. And that's kind of where I'm at with the team. It's like, at this point, if you're not going to change anything on the field, then you might have to make changes off the field.
The thing about Cheney, and I agree with your point about letting him go, was in retrospect a huge mistake, but also a mistake for all the other clubs that presumably passed on him.
Yeah.
I mean, back to the point about finishing. I think, and I mean this as a compliment, that dude is arrogant and he's an MFer.
Mm-hmm.
And what team couldn't use somebody who is a little arrogant and an MFer when they play center forward and they have a track record of scoring goals, dude? I mean,
he is one of those guys where it's like he plays right on the edge, and you need that. He might do something stupid and draw himself a yellow card. He might get into a moment where it's like, all right, he's maybe checked out for like 10 seconds because he didn't get the pass he wanted, or he missed the shot. But if that ball gets near him, he's going to take the shot, and a good chance that he is going to score. And I think that's one of those. That's the kind of thing you look for in a center forward, especially with that experience.
Seriously, it was the least surprising thing when he came to Spokane and helped them get a draw against us. I was like, of course that happened. Oh my God.
Yeah. But
that's your Lex coming to Spokane, unfortunately.
I was like, and he went to Charlotte. I was like, there it is. And now Charlotte added Tumi Moshabani. I was like, oh, this is going to be a very interesting team.
Seriously. Yeah.
But we
So
did
they're another
get
team that we didn't talk a lot about that I do feel like are constantly underestimated in my
yeah.
short time following in this league. They're just it's a solid club. They're well coached and they get good players.
I think it was one of it was like the preconceived dislike of their owner. So then it's kind of like we don't like Charlotte. Like people don't like Charlotte because of their owner and all the things that he was saying.
Which is
And
fair.
then it was
Yeah.
also one of those where it's like this team could always attack, but their defense was always poor. And it kind of felt like they're not putting money. They don't have players until the last possible moment. So it always feels like one of those. And this year I did not make that mistake. I was like, they'll probably be a good team, host a playoff game type of level. But I think it is just one of those where they're a well-coached team. And despite their moments of defensive questioning, they have the firepower that it will not matter. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, yeah, sure, they lose Luis Alvarez, add Moshe Bani, and you still have Christian Cheney. It's like, all right, sure, why not? But we did, however, get breaking news, I guess, like somewhat breaking news, but it was finally confirmed this morning that the New York Cosmos are coming back, and they're coming to USL League One in 2026. They will not be the New York Cosmos. They will just be the Cosmos, but they will be playing over in New Jersey, playing in the Hincliffe Stadium in Patterson. So I don't know where to start with this because it's like you're bringing in the biggest, I would say, team in the country, like in terms of like brand and like recognition.
Yeah, there's not a more prominent historical soccer brand in the United States than Cosmos.
Yeah.
No, no
It's
shot.
like,
Yeah.
say what you will about the Cosmos and everything about them in the past.
Sure. Yeah.
That is still a team that everyone around the world knows. And the fact that they're coming back, what's been your reaction or feeling of like, okay, because if I feel like it first started as like a rumor and then it really accelerated and now it's official.
I think it's just going to come down to how much of the DNA of that history are they going to bring into whatever this USL League One version of the story looks like. But I can't look at it as anything other than a net huge positive from a marketing and awareness of the league perspective. I think it's awesome. I mean, think of the Kickers. I think the Kickers have such a great, like, historic footprint in the heart, soul, and imagination of people that have been enjoying soccer in the United States since the 70s. I think that's really cool. So I'm a wait and see type, but again, I think that the attention that's being paid to the USL because of the future implementation that's coming of promotion relegation, there's just a lot of interest. I think that the MLS continues to do things, shooting themselves in the foot over and over again, and it's just leaving more and more opportunity for people to just be like, can't there be a better way to do this? And to me, it's like, I think people look at it wrong when they think, oh, it's compete with the MLS. It's only competition with the MLS from the perspective of where there's opportunity for growing an audience, but it isn't about, oh, we're going to replace the MLS or blah, blah, blah. I don't think any of that stuff matters. I think giving consumers of the sport a choice, and there's going to be a very compelling alternative. There already is, but I think that's just going to get even more pronounced with things like this happening. The Cosmos coming to the USL.
Yeah, and it's also one of those where I feel like the MLS is never going away on its own terms.
Never.
Like if
Yeah.
the Federation or FIFA decide, nope, you got to either do this pro rel with them or you got to, like, I feel like that's the only way. So to have this option, and I mean, you have the pro rel, which is like good. There's still so many questions that I have and concerns before like going full steam ahead with it. But to bring in the Cosmos, I think that's good just for USL in general because you have this team and you know there's going to be that fan base that's going to want to care. And now you have this rivalry that's going to probably happen with Westchester or down the road Brooklyn if they get into the same league. So now you have this whole area where you can create these derbies, you can create these battles, and let's be real, there's going to be people that want to care and follow just because it's the Cosmos. I think they'll still keep some elements. Like I think the logo they've already kept. I think the color scheme is going to be the same. I think the interesting part is with Rocco selling basically the majority of it to that North Jersey soccer group, he's not going to have as much say in it. So I'm curious where his influence comes in, because I feel like that's also one of the things that makes people very hesitant to be like all in on caring about the Cosmos. Was Rocco, and now that he's not going to be as much of a factor, is this new ownership group really going to make sure to like, okay, we still have to keep this group and keep this brand, but also we have to make sure like to still differentiate it in a way that shows like, yes, we are the Cosmos, but it's not it's not completely the Cosmos that you know of, and it's not going to be, just like a marketing kind of aspect. Like, we're going to try and actually play games, because I would say the Cosmos would be the biggest team in the league. And I say that as a Fort Madison fan. Like, I feel like when you think of the league, if you ask people to name a team in USL League One, it's going to be Cosmos, the first one.
It's going to be competition for audience, though. And I think that's the thing that I'm going to be very curious to see what happens, for instance, with Santa Barbara. Yeah, Santa Barbara doesn't have a professional sports team right now, but I mean, come on, you're a short commute from 1,000 teams playing professional sports. So will people in the Santa Barbara community show up and support that team? I actually suspect they will. But
Yeah.
But the same questions come to mind for me with, it's happening with Westchester. In case I missed something, I don't think the attendance has been fantastic, right? Brooklyn FC, don't even ask. It's horrific. Like, they're getting like 30 people.
And I wonder if that's just because it's the women's team. I'm curious what happens when the men's team start. Because like with the women's team, it's like maybe it's just because it's USLW. Like maybe it's just because it's the USL Super League and it's the women's teams that why it's not getting as much. But still, like, it's not the fault of the club. Like, they did make sure the branding was there to really tie it. But I do agree, like, will it drive the audience?
Well, think of all the things you can do in New York City, before you even get to sports. And then you go, well, you also have to compete with all of these other sports that are established. But the Cosmos angle, you're right. You would assume that DNA and that history could be carried forward and introduced to a new audience that's hungry for more. I don't know. I'm very curious to see how it's going to play out. I wish there were more. My biggest criticism right now with the USL in general is the lack of West Coast teams. And, obviously that's going to change a bit next year with League One, but, the future for the Super League is still bleak when it comes to West Coast teams. So I hope they fix that and find a way to fix it.
Yeah, I've always said need more teams in the West, need more teams in the Midwest. I'm good with teams in the South. We're good. We don't need more.
The Florida thing is just comical at this point, Kyle. I mean, it just makes it look ridiculous.
It's
like
just
we have 17 clubs in one state. Like, okay, we get that you're headquartered there, but and I think that the importance of like casual fans nationwide is going to be it's the future. That is the biggest opportunity for the USL, and the signal right now is, oh well, it looks like you kind of need to be in the Southeast to be part of this league,
right?
Like
Southeast or maybe bad. California and make it work.
Maybe, yeah, but it's so lopsided right now.
I think it'll balance out down the road. And I think with Pro Rel as well, that should help out with that. Just because, with the championship, there's a lot of teams out west in the championship. There's more teams that are kind of Midwest area as well. So I think down the road, once we get to this Pro Rel, we'll start maybe seeing that balance help out. But at the same time, if we're going to have expansion teams, it's like, basically, if you're in the South, great. If you have the money to do it in the Northeast, sure.
Well, there's a snowball effect from this, right? So now, because there's so much concentration in the Southeast, then there's more interest in starting more Southeast clubs, because then you could be like, well, we'll have all these teams that we can play, and we just have to take a bus to get there.
Right. It's just like you can take a bus.
The opposite is also true. You go, okay, am I going to start up a West Coast team? Oof. Look at we're going to add $150,000 to our travel budget. That's a competitive disadvantage. That's
the thing that hurts the teams with the finances. I mean, like a team like Spokane,
really awful.
I'm sure Lancaster, they spent so much money. Madison's the same way. I know last year Madison spent so much just with travel because, I mean, the closest drive was Omaha, and that's still like 8 hours on the road. And I think that was, I think this is where Boise will help with that, because at least that makes it a shorter trip for you all. I think if NOCO
Boise,
had,
Eugene, and I think there's one other team that I'm forgetting. I don't keep up on this stuff as much as I probably
I
should,
used
but
to, and then I kind of felt like Eugene was one of those like, okay, I guess that's not happening. But
every day there's a new rumor, so I'm just kind of like I'm a wait and see person.
Lane
But right,
United, I think
yeah,
that was
exactly.
over in Ballard, or yeah, I think that was another one. But I think this is where, like, if NOCO had any sorts of seriousness, this would have been great for NOCO. Would have been
Yeah.
like having Boise, NOCO, you all like in that stretch could have balanced things out, but it is what it is at this point.
The big remix with the addition of this Premier League, one that sanctioning, and I do think it's going to happen. I feel
Yeah.
confident from the things that I've learned that it's going to be granted. That is the opportunity for the great remix, because there's a bunch of assumptions that they're just going to populate that Premier Division with only championship teams.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's true. I think there's going to be the potential for at least a few, we'll see, new
Yeah.
clubs that are started from scratch. So I would not be surprised if that happens.
Well, I feel like there's still that like giant group of teams that were supposed to go to the championship that just hasn't happened yet. I'm thinking like Milwaukee supposedly are coming next year, but we don't know. Like Milwaukee's supposed to be one, Jacksonville's supposed to be coming, Buffalo. Like you have these markets, like I think Des Moines, Iowa. Like you have a lot of teams that are kind of like in this, yeah, we're coming, we swear. And now it's kind of like, I don't know if they will. And that's not including a team like OKC Energy coming back. So I feel like the top level will probably be a mixture of those championship teams. And depending, there might be a League One team. There might be, a team that's not even in USL as of right now, that might decide we'll jump over and try and make it happen. So I do think it's going to be good. I just wonder how many of those teams that were slated to come into championship are actually going to come over, or if they're just going to wait until they figure out this Premier League division D1 status first before making that final decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, but that is our quick kicks. So Benji, thank you very much for coming on. Where can people find you on social media and also your podcast?
Sadly, Instagram is probably the main place to get all the announcements about the show, or YouTube, I think, would be great as well. Just Spokane Soccer Show. Pretty easy to find.
All right, perfect. And then appreciate you coming on. This has been Kyle. This has been Walking 90 at Quick Kicks. Make sure to follow us on Blue Sky, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube so that we can all get tattoos when we're in Madison for the Henny Derby. But for Kyle, for Benji, have a good day, everyone.